Okay, so today we're going to learn about trigger mechanism in your DBMS, right? Trigger is basically your series of PL or SQL statements, right? Or codes, the SQL codes you give. So there are a series of codes that runs every time a thing is updated in the table, right? Like insertion, deletion, or updation is done in a table. That in that point, the SQL or PL statement runs each and every time. So basically, you can say a trigger is a series of PL SQL code that is immediately fired when a certain event took place or takes place in a table in the database. All right. So suppose you are using a FB account, right, or any account. There you log in. Okay, if you insert a right code, then you are allowed to go in, right? You are allowed to log in. If you do not insert a right code, there a message pops up with red color that your ID or password is incorrect. This, who is doing this? This is done by your trigger. Okay, when you are giving your ID and password and you're pressing enter, then the trigger or the PL SQL statement runs. If it is okay, that is, if the thing is entering in the table is fine, authorized, then it allows you. If it is not authorized, it doesn't allows you. It says you that this is incorrect. Okay, so this is basically a trigger. So trigger, you can give an example of trigger SQL code like create trigger. Here you can give the trigger name. Okay, I'm giving trigger name. You can give the trigger name here. Okay, then on schema, and then for whichever purpose you want. This can only run for three things, that is insert, update, and delete. Okay, these are the only three things that is available for updation. So like update, insert, or delete. Okay, so basically this is your example for your trigger. I don't think it is that much efficient to give this example. You can just give about the definition and one to line, like the definition I told you, and then you can give the example of I've given you of your login purpose that scores you 2 marks, and then there are the advantage and disadvantage. This will score you 3 marks. So this example is not that mandatory. Okay, because it is hard to remember maybe sometimes, I don't know, so it is not that mandatory still. Okay, so I have given you a trigger is a basically series of PL or SQL statement that runs every time when a certain event takes place in a table, like events are insert, update, and delete. Okay, so the example was login to your Facebook account or your Gmail account, anything, right? Login. So strengths are it gives you a security, like it only gives you access or it gives access to the authorized persons only, right? Only authorized persons. So access to authorized persons, that is the same example, right? If other person wants to enter to your Facebook account, he can't, because he's not authorized. Okay, because whenever he gives the wrong information, then he will given the pop-up and he will be blocked. So there's that. And and you also can give one more, that is it can be used for enforcing constraints, right? For any insert or update statements, like suppose there is something that for insertion, updation, like to enforcing constraints. You already know what constraints is, right? If you don't, then check my previous video, there I given conditions. Okay, so constraints, for example, you can give insert or delete. Okay, so enforcing constraints, it can be used for enforcing constraints, that is insert and delete. How that is, suppose for inserting, you need to give a constraint that if you need to insert this suppose number 54, then it must be greater than 50. Okay, and it must be less than 60. So this is your constraints that you are enforcing. Okay, so without that the number won't be inserted, or the deletion won't be done. So this is your enforcing constraint. Okay, these two can be the strengths, and of course there are weaknesses. Okay, so first weakness is it doesn't give any documentation, right? Like how it works, or does it even exists, because every time it fires whenever the insertion or deletion is done, right? So there is no documentation of its having even existence. So if there is no documentation, then it will be very hard for the new developer. Suppose you are going in, right, and you don't even know that the SQL or the trigger has been there or not, or the SQL or PQL statement has run there or not, because there is no documentation. So it will be hard for you. So basically, as there is no documentation, it will be very difficult to figure out for the new developers for their existence. So there is no documentation. So as there is no documentation, it will be hard for the new developers for getting or knowing their existence, that if this trigger or the PL SQL statement either exists or not. Okay, so there is no documentation. And this one is I think this is the worst of it. I mean, this is the best weakness you can say. That is every time a system is updated, right, the SQL things runs, right, and every time the SQL runs, the system becomes slow. Suppose in your computer you are suppose editing a video, right, and there you are every time, suppose you are given a code. In that code, every time you delete something, okay, the whole system or the whole application runs again. Okay, suppose this is the comment you have given. So what will happen? Your computer will slow, right? So suppose this kind of things are given in the SQL or PQL statements as a trigger, so it will slow the whole process. So basically, trigger runs every time when the database fields are updated, and it overheads the whole process and slows down the system. So slows down the system as it runs every time when a table is updated, inserted or deleted. Okay, so this is about trigger mechanism. Hope you guys understood. To memorize this all and to compact this all, a trigger is a series of PL SQL statement or code that runs every time when a certain change is made in the table of the database. Okay, so this is the example. Strengths: access to authorized personas only. Okay, the example is Facebook. Enforcing constraints, like inside list I will told you, right, you can enforce any constraint you want. Weaknesses: there is no documentation, so newcomers don't know that if it exists or not. Okay, so and the last one is with the weaknesses, of course, that slows down the whole system, because it runs every time a table is updated, right, so it slows down the whole system. So this is about the trigger mechanism, and this is actually a very common question, right? It comes like every time. Okay, so I think you guys should I think you guys should learn about this very well. And for the definition, you can go to Wikipedia or like Chrome, search anywhere. Okay, you could turn on definitions. So yeah, I think you guys understood. If you guys did, then great. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.